Well, spring is officially here and it is time to start warm season crops, so that's what we're going to discuss in today's video. Hey guys, welcome back to another Slightly Redneck video. Again, my name is Chris. If you're not familiar with this channel, I help you to produce your own meat, eggs, and vegetables from your backyard, your balcony, your deck, your garage, or heck, even a spare room in your house if that's the way you want to do it. Today is March 24th, I think. So we're about a week away from the 1st of April, and it is time to start my warm season crops. And these are going to be what I'm starting today: tomatoes, peppers, let's see, basil, parsley, most of those things. A lot of seeds, you're going to plant directly out into the garden instead of starting them indoors. But these seeds I'm going to start indoors because they do take a while to get up and get going. And this gives me a jump on the season. So this is about 6 weeks before I plan on planting them out in the garden. My last frost date here is around April 15th, April 20th. But I always go a couple of weeks after that before I put tomatoes, peppers, warm season crops out in the garden. So usually about the first to second week of May is when I'm ready to put them out into the garden. So now is the perfect time to go ahead and get started with my warm season crops. Now I've already done a video on seed starting that explains everything I've got set up here, how to start seeds. And although that was for cool season crops, it's the same process. You use the exact same process. So if you're looking for an instructional video on how to start your seeds, that's probably going to be a better video for you to watch. I'll put a link up here, I believe it is, and that will give you a link to that video. You can go watch that video. It explains the grow lights, explains hardening them all. I mean, everything you need to know about getting your seeds actually started is all in that video right there. Today what I'm going to do is just talk a little bit about the different types of plants that I'm actually starting this year. All right, so I've got two different types, well, several different types of tomatoes, but I want to talk for a minute about the different types of tomatoes. There's basically, there's a ton of different types of tomatoes. You've got cherry tomatoes, a bunch of different types of heirlooms, all kinds of different strains. But what I want to talk about is the difference between the two basic types of tomatoes. You've got like your beefsteak tomatoes and your paste tomatoes. Beefsteaks are going to be what you're usually probably more familiar with, slicing tomatoes for like sandwiches and those kinds of things. Your paste tomatoes are just what they sound like. They're more suited to making sauces, to making tomato paste. But also, if you want to can tomatoes, if you want a big harvest of tomatoes to can, paste tomatoes are what you want to be able to, what you want to grow. They do can much better than a beefsteak tomato, than a slicing tomato. If you try to can a slicing tomato, you're going to end up with more tomato juice than you are tomato. So it's better off to start with a paste tomato for canning. So in my garden, what I do is I grow a couple of plants that are going to be beefsteak slicing tomatoes. And that keeps me with slicing tomatoes all year long. And then the rest of my plants I grow are paste tomatoes. And that way I have tomatoes to can, and I can use those all winter long. As far as how many plants, I'm probably going to start, I'm going to be giving plants away. But for myself personally, I'll probably go with 3 different beefsteak tomatoes. And then I'll probably go with about 6 or 7 paste tomatoes, and that should give me plenty of tomatoes to actually can and plenty of tomatoes to eat during the summer season when it's all going. So the specific tomatoes I'm planting today, these are Amish paste. This is probably one of my favorite paste tomatoes. They're very similar to a Roma tomato, if you're familiar with Romas. I don't think you can see the picture on the front there, maybe, but that's a great paste tomato. Grows really well in my area, and holds up really well for canning. It's very, very good producer. So one of my favorite paste tomatoes, Amish paste. I'm also going to be starting, let's see, these are Granny Cantrell German red tomatoes. I've never grown these before, but these are a beefsteak, a meaty slicing tomato. So I'm going to have a few of these started. I've never tried them before. That's going to be something new for me this year. And I've got some, let's see, what are these? This was a free pack, I think, that came with a seed order. These are black vernissage, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, black vernissage tomatoes. So they look like kind of a smaller tomato, but a nice round tomato. Never grown them before. I'm going to start a few of these and try them out. And that's probably about it as far as the tomatoes go. As far as peppers, let's see, I've got these. These I've never tried before are habanada is what they're called. They are a habanero type pepper with no heat. I really like the heat of peppers, but my wife doesn't. So we're going to try these out this year, see how well they do, and see if she likes them. They're supposed to have that habanero flavor, but not be real hot and spicy like a regular habanero is. Then I've got some standard habaneros, some orange and some white habaneros, some cayenne. Let's see, some parsley. And basil. I've got purple and green basil I'm going to be starting today. And I think that's about it for this video, or for this time. This is what I'm going to be starting. So again, I've got all my stuff kind of set up and ready to go here. It's the same process I used before, so if you watched that other video, no need for you to see all that. But basically what I'm going to do is get these things started, fill my trays up here, get the seed started. I'm going to go with just one seed per cell and kind of conserve my seed a little bit because I don't have a ton of seed. If I had a bunch of seed, or if these were really old seed, then I would go for 2 or 3 seeds per cell and then just pull them out after they thin them out to the strongest one. So what I've got to do here is get some little containers filled with dirt, and then we'll start with actually planting some seed out. Now again, when you're putting these in, again, I've covered this already, but whenever I'm filling these up, I'm using a sterile seed starting mix. I poured hot boiling water over it to pre-moisten it and also make sure that it's sterile. I'm going to pack these things in pretty good with this seed starting mix because I want a good tight, I want it to hold a lot of moisture. I don't want a bunch of air pockets in there, and I also want it to come out in one chunk whenever I do take them out to transplant them into other things. So, alright, so I have got my first section of cells all filled with soil, ready to go, or potting, or seeding, seed mix, whoops, seed starting mix, there we go, I'll get it out eventually. And then I'm just going to go and put a small hole. I'll just use, again, I use the depth of a pencil eraser, works pretty well for me. Just make a small hole. I'm going to drop one seed in each one of these holes. Again, I will tell you guys, if you watch my other video, you already know this, but you don't want to plant your seeds too deep. That is probably one of the most common mistakes that people make, is going way too deep with their seeds. Now, especially with tomato seeds, it's not as big of a concern. These plants will sprout still yet, but it just takes a little bit longer for them to get up to the soil surface. But still, there's no need to go very deep. They just need to be, just underneath the soil level. That's it. Okay, once I get those planted, then I just cover them up with the dirt and kind of pack them down a little bit. Let me get the rest of these done on this little cell here. Now, when you're covering your seeds up, you do want to make sure that you kind of, you don't pack it down hard, but you want to make sure that it's fairly firm. They do need to be in contact with soil in order to sprout. Now, again, these don't need light to germinate. You don't need to worry about putting them under lights. It's not a bad idea to go ahead and stick them under your grow lights. That way, as soon as they do sprout, they'll have the light, and they won't be getting reaching for it. But they don't need light to sprout. These are going to take about 7 to 10 days to sprout, depending on the temperature. If you're having a hard time, these are warm season crops, so this is a little bit different than when we were starting our cool season crops in the last video. But if you're having a hard time getting them to sprout, you might try warming them up, putting some kind of like a heating pad or something like that underneath them. To get them to be a little bit warmer. They usually need to be about 75 degrees in order to sprout. Now, I do use a humidity dome, so I'll be placing a humidity dome on it. You want to keep them fairly moist, not dripping wet, but damp. Water them just about every day. Or if you use a humidity dome and it's fogged up, that's plenty moist enough for them until they sprout. Now, as soon as they sprout, you want to remove this humidity dome, get rid of it. Don't use it again, and then let them dry out just a little bit in between waterings. Once again, when they do sprout, I just do bottom watering. I don't water from the top anymore at that point, and then I do that just by filling the bottom of the tray up, maybe a quarter of the way with water, letting them absorb all they're going to absorb in about half an hour, and then dump the rest of the water off. All right, the last thing I need to do with these is I need to get them labeled, and I've got some popsicle sticks around here somewhere that I'm going to use for labels. What did I do with them? Aha, there they are. So I need to make sure I label these, because otherwise you won't remember what they are. As soon as they start to sprout, they're going to look like just everything else. And that's easy enough to do. I just write on a popsicle stick what it is and stick it in there, and that will keep track of it. Now I'm going to do one in each one of these cells in case these get separated for some reason. Then I won't have to worry about it. All right, one down and many more to go. But you guys don't need to watch that. The process is going to be the same for everything else. Now again, once these things sprout, they're going to go under the grow lights. The grow lights are going to go right down on top of them. But again, if you need all that information, go back and check out my last video I did. I cover all of that in that video. This is part of my Seed to Harvest series of videos I'm doing this year, where I'm taking you all the way from starting my seeds all the way through the gardening season to the end of the season when I harvested everything else. So if you are new to gardening, follow my channel. We'll make sure that you have a great harvest this year. I'm going to share any mistakes I make. Everything that goes on this year, I'm going to share that with you guys so you will be able to keep up, avoid my mistakes, and have a great harvest at the end of the season. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching this video. And as always, God bless.